Good evening. It's the Community Redevelopment Agency regular meeting. It is Tuesday, May 14, 2019 at 5:30 p.m. Can you please call the roll?
Chair Llewellyn.
Here.
Vice Chair Odman.
Here.
Board Member Brandemar.
Here.
Board Member Harris.
Here.
Board Member James.
Here.
CRA Director Williams.
Here.
City Attorney Ansbro.
Here.
Thank you.
Do we have any citizens' comments? No? No? Okay. Number 3 is administrative reports. First item is the administrative report memo.
Good afternoon, CRA Board. I would like to draw your attention to a few items as part of the administrative report. The first is our legislative update, House Bill 9. The State Senate just last week passed a few things that will impact CRAs, and a few of those items are listed in your admin report, but I just wanted to highlight the fact that CRA board members will now be required to do ethics training, similar to how city commissioners do ethics training. We will also have some changes to the annual report requirements as listed in the report. And these are all things that I think we can accomplish and we will accomplish. I just wanted to make sure that you are aware of it.
Raquel, if I may, I actually listened to the report, to the summary today from the League of Cities, and they indicated that the ethics training, if you are an elected official and you're already doing the 4 hours, it's the same. You don't have to duplicate it. You don't have to take another 4 hours on top of it. It's the same 4 hours, so it really doesn't impact us. It's the same thing we already have to do. Commissioner Brandemar.
So, Mayor, we could do this in Orlando?
I'm not sure.
It's not
the
at
same
the same
thing.
meeting, right?
My understanding is that the current ethics training will be edited just a little to ensure that it covers CRAs as well.
Right.
So that's my understanding of it.
That's real good. Thank you.
But it's not like we're going to be required to do an additional 4 hours on top of the 4 that's already required. Okay, go ahead.
I did also want to report that CRA staff met with Broward County staff regarding our loan to grant conversion. As you know, we have a pending loan balance with the county under the redevelopment capital program of about $2.5 million. We do anticipate submitting for full conversion within the next week. So, we hope that we'll be successful in that effort. I just wanted to keep you updated. The City Center RFP project, the deadline has been moved to June 13th, as you are aware. If anyone asks for more information on that project, of course, please direct it to our clerk. As far as the rebranding initiative, I want to highlight that we have submitted documents for mid-year budget request related to the 6 entranceway signs outside of the airport sign. So that's something that will be coming to you at mid-year. Our groundbreaking event for our at-home Dania Beach program, inclusive of our affordable housing development and beautification grant, will be taking place on May 25th at 10 a.m. We expect to have a lot of attendees and volunteers present, and this is something that the CRA has been working toward for quite some time. Other than that, I can take any questions on the admin report if you have any.
Any questions? Okay. Next item is save the date, October 16 through 18, 2019, Florida Redevelopment Association Annual Conference.
Okay, so it's that time of year again for the Florida Redevelopment Association Annual Conference. If you are interested in attending, if you could just send me an email so that we can, start looking into it, and pending the travel item on consent today, we'll look at how this will be addressed. But this is something that I think will be very valuable for every CRA board member and even staff members that want to learn more about CRAs and highlight what the Dania Beach CRA is doing. We plan to submit for 4 FRA awards this year, and hopefully we will be successful. So once the agenda comes out, I'll make it available to you, but start looking at those dates and determine if you would be willing to attend. Thank you.
Vice Chair.
Is this the one where there's also some classes offered at the same time that coincide? So I know you at one point sent us the the schedule, but we can also sign up for those?
That is correct. There will be an FRA Academy course one day prior to the conference and one day after the conference. So if you're interested in knocking out two
Plan
courses,
on going up the day before and leaving a day later?
right, yes.
Okay. Do you know if it's at the same hotel? Would we?
Yes, the course will be offered at the same hotel as the conference.
Oh, nice. All right. Awesome. Thank you.
Anything else? No? We have no presentations. Next item is the consent agenda. Do we have any polls?
Wait 1 second.
The attorney has a poll?
For the travel policy for both the CRA and the commission, I want to add a sentence to the resolution. I'll work with the clerk, but it would say, this policy is adopted pursuant to
Well,
Florida.
Do we want to hold off on that till we
So,
do the
pull it
others?
forward.
Yeah.
Okay, all right,
Because
sure.
I actually want to pull that one as
Okay,
well.
okay.
I'd like to pull number 4. Okay, so do we have a motion to approve 5, 1 through 3?
I make a motion to approve consent agenda exclusive of 5.4. Is it 5.4 or 5.4? Yes.
Okay, with the exception of, is there a second? I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay, so we're pulling number 4, and you wanted to add some language. Let's
Yeah,
start with
I'll
that
just read the
first.
title so we know again. It's a resolution of the Board of Directors of the Community Redevelopment Agency of the City of Dania Beach, Florida, adopting a travel policy, providing for conflicts, further providing for an effective date. Just to clarify, for both this policy's adoption and the one for the commission, I'd like to add a sentence that said that the policy is adopted pursuant to Florida Statutes Section 166.021, parentheses 9, parentheses A. This is a section that allows cities to have their own, allows cities to have their own policies. Otherwise, you're subject to a state law, and that law is very, let's say, parsimonious or cheap with respect to benefits. So this gives you the power to adopt your own policy for both the CRA and the commission. I'm going to say that at the other meeting as well.
Okay. And I actually wanted to pull this because I have some concerns because we did this initial discussion during a workshop that was held on Good Friday. And I've had a number of people who have contacted me since then who were very upset that it was held on Good Friday and they did not have the ability to get here to make comments or express their concerns. So again, I want to bring up a couple of things that we discussed at the workshop, but I've also done some further research, and I think you all need to be aware of it. Something that's unique about our CRA is that we are one of 4 cities in the entire state that even has a separate CRA. Most of the CRAs are directly under the city. So because we have a separate CRA, we have a separate CRA budget. And so because of that, the request was made that there be a separate CRA travel budget set up for the board members. In other cities where the CRA is part of the actual city itself and is not a separate entity, the travel budget is incorporated into the travel budget for the commission. And that includes cities like Hallandale, which is the city that we basically used as a model when we were having our discussion about this. And my recollection was that Hallandale has a $10,000 per commissioner budget for travel, including for CRA. It's not a separate budget. And as you all know, the recommendation was made that we have a $12,000 per commissioner budget for the commission, and then a separate $8,000 per budget per commissioner or per board member for the CRA. My concern is that we went from a total $18,000 budget, which I think was low for travel in total for the entire commission, to $100,000. It's a significant increase. I don't know of any city, especially a city this size, that has a travel budget that's that high. And I think we need to reconsider what we're going to do as far as the budget for the CRA travel. Now, I do have a couple of questions that I'm hoping that the CRA executive director can answer for me. I know the main reason why you had recommended and asked us for a significant budget, travel budget for each of the board members was because there were opportunities for certification for each of the board members. When we go for educational courses, it's supposed to be something that is something that improves the overall board. and it improves what we do here as policymakers. I am a little unsure as to what obtaining certification for CRA is going to do to improve us as a board. Can you tell me what the certification actually certifies?
So the Florida Redevelopment Association has what's called the Redevelopment Academy, and it offers several core and elective courses related to matters pertaining to CRAs and their operations, what CRAs have the capacity to do. We have noticed that at several of the FRA Academy courses, there are elected officials, CRA board members who are taking the classes because they want to be more educated on how CRAs should operate, especially because CRAs aren't as familiar to people, especially newly elected officials. And so it's very helpful to gain that education and training in order to help make policy decisions and to determine what's in the best interest of the CRA.
But is that really something that we need as board members, or is that really something that's more traditionally for CRA staff so that they can improve what they do as their job?
There are actually two certification tracks. One track is for current CRA staff, and another track is for elected officials and or people in industry that work with CRAs. You'll see people from the legal industry. You'll see people that are developers that want to know more about CRAs and want to understand how to interface with CRAs. So it's really dependent upon whether or not the CRA board member would like to be more educated in that fashion. I do think that there are benefits, but it really is up to the board members to decide if that's something that they feel would help them make better policy decisions.
I mean, my concern is that I want to make sure that this is going to be a certification program, that it's being used for the right purposes. I can see where a certification could help improve an individual, especially if an individual at some point wants to go work for a CRA at some point in time, but not necessarily helping the board as a whole. I just think that the expense outweighs the benefit overall. And I know in some cities, for example, Hollywood, they don't even budget for CRA travel at all. They have a very small budget that it does not include CRA at all. They have to, if they do want to travel for CRA, they come and request it. And I think if we are going to do a travel budget for the CRA, it should be much lower. And again, I'm going to go back to my original suggestion, which was $2,500 per CRA board member. Let's see, who went first?
Hey.
Commissioner Brandemarty?
Yeah. Good evening, everybody. Through the mayor to the CRA, have we ever been offered these courses also, since we are a CRA board?
I don't know if we have. Is that something that we've been offered before?
I am not sure if previous CRA directors have informed CRA board of the availability of these courses. This is something that I introduced at the workshop. I'm not sure if this was something that was mentioned in previous years, but it is available to board members.
Board Member Harris?
I mean, if I had to make a motion, I would take a motion to reconsider this and the educational benefits of the training, since we've never had it before, and look at some of the locations where it's within the state of Florida for the CRA within the state. So the travel, I think that what we should look at is with the staff and the commissioners, and probably ratchet that back a little bit, because let's take a look at the conference, and if everybody went, what the total cost would be, like if Lauren went, or with Chicky went, or Tamara went, or if we all go, and just look at the numbers, because I think it's a little high for interstate travel.
Vice
Not
Chair?
that we shouldn't, I'm sorry. Not that we shouldn't do it, but we should look at, the cost for interstate travel. It just seems high to me.
Because it was the registration fee as well, is my understanding. That was part of it. Vice Chair?
Director, how many people from the board have signed up for these classes so far?
Thus far, 2 board members have expressed interest since I sent out an email identifying which courses were available.
Okay. And one of them was myself. And
Was that
I
you?
mean, well, I have, I have no thoughts in my head of ever pursuing a career in what you do. When I looked at those classes, redevelopment incentives, housing as a redevelopment tool, planning strategically for redevelopment, respectfully, I would say that these are courses that absolutely will enhance this board, will absolutely help us make better decisions as your elected officials and members of this board. And since this was offered to us, I've reached out to other people who were familiar with these courses, and I've heard nothing but good things and nothing but information that this was something that helped them make better decisions as you're elected. So I understand if you want to take the cost down. I think originally I said something maybe $1,800 per board member, and then I realized that's not even going to cover one course for me. So I might as well have said $10 because it didn't. If I didn't even cover the cost for things I already knew I was attending, I'm already planning on signing up or have signed up. So 2 of these courses, because I feel it helps me make better decisions, not for me, for us, and for you. Again, not for me, not just for us, but for you. And then I looked at the cost for the FRA conference. I mean, that already, Director, can you just ballpark me a number of what that brings me up to?
Well, if your intent is to take the course before and the course after.
The course before, the course after, attend the conference, because I'm going to be up there anyway, and then the course that I've already signed up for, that I already have the registration for, what does that bring me personally up to?
I mean, I think you'd be saving a lot by taking the 2 courses at the conference because you'll already be there. I think you're looking at a $3,000 minimum there.
Okay.
I think when we go to FRA, we don't typically take all the classes because we don't usually need one or both of the classes as staff. Because we've already taken them already. But if you're going to go for what I think will be 5 days, I think you're at a minimum looking at, $3,000 to $4,000.
Okay. So that would be assuming that I didn't take any other classes and I didn't attend any other conferences, correct?
Could you repeat that, please?
That would be, so that number would be not taking anything else. So I wouldn't be able to do any of the other classes for the year. That would cap me out.
Do you mean if you set your travel budget at $4,000? Yes, that's correct. That would mean you wouldn't be able to go anywhere else or take any other courses,
and then
more than likely.
I believe I asked you this question before. I wouldn't have to finish the certification in 1 year. It could be done over the course of 2 years. So whatever we didn't finish this year, we could do so next year.
That is correct. You could schedule it in the way that, meets your needs. I'm not sure of the requirements that you have with work and childcare and, everything else, but it's at your discretion how aggressively you want to pursue the certification or not.
Well, I can only pursue it as aggressively as the checks that we can cut. So that limits my ability to be aggressive. So, but it allows for me to spread it out over 2 years and to still become certified.
That's correct. There are some courses that are available during this fiscal year that could be taken. There's some courses that are required that are not available in this fiscal year. So the core courses are what are absolutely you must take, and those are scheduled in 2020. So for sure, you would have to span, if you want to start this fiscal year, you would still have to go into the next fiscal year to do it.
Okay, understood. Thank you, Director.
Board Member James?
After I make my statements and after all the other discussion, then I have a motion. I too.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we do have another person that pushed their button.
That's
so.
what I said. After I finish my statements and after the rest of the discussions, I have a motion. So I too am one that I'm very interested in understanding and educating myself. And as I look through all of our agendas and our requests for different certifications and courses throughout all of our different departments, and the amount of money that we invest in our employees is very vital because they are the ones that are directly making a difference with our public. However, us as policymakers here, we have to make the decisions on what policies and procedures we are going to follow. I know that I want to try to knock as much out as I can, efficiently as I can. Everyone else might not be able to travel when I can travel, and everyone may not be able to stay at the FRA to take those conferences, but I would really hate to not budget for something and want to do something of that nature. I don't think it's irresponsible for us to educate ourselves, especially when we're managing 35,000 residents. I don't think that is something hard to ask. I do know that once if this passes and I knock my classes out, obviously I won't need the same budget because the reason why we asked for this amount in the budget is solely for educational purposes. It wasn't for us to go attend 5 different conferences. It's for the classes that we can provide to you that we will be understanding. And as you all sit through the rest of this meeting, you will understand the need to understand different things that the CRA was created for and the things that we handle. And so I am prepared and willing in the years to come if the people that are already sitting here are already certified, then of course we wouldn't need the same amount of number. But I'm not gonna tell us to be an eagle and clip our wings. I'm just not going to do that, especially when we invest the best in the people that serve us, the people that head our departments. When you look at salaries, when you look at benefits, when you look at certifications, we have a lot of people that come here and start as part-timers and may have the opportunity to become a director, or people that get a lot of certifications from working right here in the city. And so after everyone else speaks, I have a motion.
Board Member Harris.
Raquel, how many FRA conferences are there per year?
There's one annual conference in
Okay.
October of
And
every
last
year.
year it was in, was it in Daytona the year before,
No,
or
not Daytona.
in Tampa? I mean, I remember because I was scheduled to go and then I couldn't go, so I'm not saying that everybody shouldn't travel to get their certifications. I'm just saying that the amount is too high, looking at the best case scenario. So if we could just ratchet that amount back a little bit and maybe send one designated person who wants to go, or, it's whatever. It's just high.
Vice Chair.
And respectfully, Board Member Harris, I would respond to that with, we don't choose the prices. I mean, we've talked about, I wish it was lower. I wish it was less expensive and, that we could all travel on an IKEA budget. But the prices are what they are. But I think we have all verbalized several times that we see tremendous value in educating this board. And I don't want to, as Board Member James said, clip our wings. However, in the interest of building bridges and trying to, as you said, ratchet back the price, it does seem that we could accomplish most of what we are looking to accomplish in terms of education if we rolled back to 6,000 from the 8,000. So that will be my motion, to change the per commission dollar travel allotment from 8,000 to 6,000.
Board Member Brandon Marty.
Number one, we don't pick one person, as was stated up here. That doesn't go. And I don't see how we're arguing over a price for continuing education, which is our right, because we're not doing this continuing education for us, as was stated. We're doing it for the people that elected us, and they trust us. They trust us to know what's best for the city. Otherwise, you don't need an election. But to think of even singling out one person, now who might that one person be? Ain't happening up here today, tomorrow, or any other day. Thank you.
My only remaining comments on this is that I am not opposed to education as long as it's education for the right purposes. In this case, the certification is really geared more towards staff. It is not geared towards board members. There might be a couple of classes that would be appropriate for board members, but to be certified as a CRA administrator or whatever the position is not necessarily something that's required. And it's not something that's really going to help us up here. A lot of this information can be learned from others who are being certified. No issue with the staff being certified because that's what they do on a day-to-day basis. We do not work in the office and do the CRA work. If we were doing the work of the CRA, that would be a different thing. We are not. They are the ones who are doing it. Therefore, that's not a problem if they become certified. That's their job. That's their right. But we need to be mindful of the fact that based upon the request, even with $6,000, that's still an additional $30,000 on top of an already $60,000 travel budget. That is excessive. It is unnecessary. And like I said, I don't know any city in Broward County that has a budget that high for travel. And this is not, it's not to try to say that we shouldn't be traveling for the appropriate things, but this is significant. And when you talk about the voters and people electing us to represent them, I have had a number of residents who have contacted me furious. Number one, that we held this meeting on Good Friday and they couldn't be here. And number two, that this was recommended, that this additional amount of money was recommended. And that if it was going to be recommended, that there should be money taken out of the city commission travel budget to put towards it, as opposed to having a $100,000 budget or now $90,000 budget, as has been suggested, for travel, when we are going to need other things that are much more significant. Commissioner Brandemarty.
It's really true. We don't do the work for the CRA. We don't. We make the decisions. And they have to be well-informed decisions. And as far as what we're learning, it ain't pole dancing and it isn't doing line dancing. It's about the CRA. Now, you'll be saving money because I'm not going. I have no interest in it. So right here, you're saving money. But I don't agree with what you're talking about as far as continuing education, because I believe that's in our list of to do as a city elected official.
Vice Chair.
Respectfully, Mayor, when you say that we don't need this certification, we don't need this education, I wonder if you have gone through all of the classes that are being offered, and it's hard for me to understand how you don't see tremendous value in us furthering our education in things like housing, which I believe that's coming up in the commission agenda and comes up probably every third or fourth agenda. Second, I would say you are partially right. We do not need to get educated. We want to get educated. And we really don't have to do much but show up here and brush our hair, maybe. That's all you got to do. You got to come up here and you got to, be somewhat coherent and vote. That's all we have to do. But that's hopefully not what you elected us to do. You elected us to become increasingly more educated on the issues, to become better over the course of the 4 years, to take what we know on day one and to continue to build on it. So to say that there's minimal value in this, that this is something for staff, I just don't agree with. So again, in the interest of building bridges and working towards consensus, because that is a fundamental part of the job of being up here, I'm ratcheting down the price. Wasn't that your word? Nurse Ratchet. Nurse Ratchet is up on the dais today, and she's bringing down the price. And I don't think that we should go too much lower, because I do know that several of us are interested in attending the annual conference and several of the education courses.
Board Member Brandon Marty?
Yeah, I just want to clarify one thing that was said that isn't true. We don't have to be up here. I'm very serious. We don't have to be up here, none of us. When we're elected a commissioner, we have a responsibility, and that's the 2 days a month, and that's the 2 commission meetings. If I want to, I don't even have to sit up here now. I can walk out that door, and there ain't nothing can be done. If they don't want it, they also can leave. But do we do that? No, we don't do that, because we love our city, because we love our residents. And that's the reason why we're up here. But is it required? Hello, city attorney, is it required?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. My case rests.
My last comment, and then we'll go ahead with Board Member James's motion. But my last comment is, no, I have not attended the classes, but I have spoken to a number of commissioners from other cities, none of which seem to put aside a travel budget for CRA travel at all. And they are requested. Instead, they come before the commission, they request it, just like we have done in the past. And I also have not come across a commissioner yet who has gone for any of these certification classes, has been interested in going in the certification classes, and quite frankly, when I have asked them about putting aside a budget of this size for certification for board members, they have all been shocked and appalled, quite frankly, at the amount of money that we're putting aside for this. So with that, if you'd like to go ahead with your motion, Board Member James, feel free.
I'll give it to the vice chair. I mean, because I don't want to debate numbers, so I'll just, because I was going to say 7 or 6,500 to try to be in the middle of the 8. That was consensus at the board meeting, but I'm really not trying to fight. So go ahead, Vice Chair.
Okay, well then I'll restate my original motion that we roll back from $8,000 per commission member to $6,000 per commissioner per year. That's my motion.
I'll second it.
Call the roll, please.
Board Member Brandemart,
Yes.
Board Member Harris,
Yes.
Board Member James,
Yes.
Vice Chair Udman,
Yes.
Chair Llewellyn.
No.
Motion carries 4-1.
Next item is proposals and bids. There are none, correct? Okay. Discussion and possible action. Number 1, Super Bowl, Board Member James.
Thank you, Chair. I have been doing my due diligence with the Super Bowl part of things, because it's already May and we really haven't made any firm decisions on which direction that we are going in, but I just wanted to bring back some things possibly that we can get something approved tonight. So I know we were all hoping that we can do a day after dark type of Super Bowl thing on that Sunday and a watch party and amp up the day after dark. However, I did receive information that the NFL holds all rights to Super Bowl game, and that broadcasting the game in the public area or park is prohibited. So that will take away our watch party for Super Bowl. However, I do think that it still is a great opportunity for us to have a great pep rally to the Super Bowl in increasing Dang It After Dark. I do know with the increased Dang It After Dark, I did have a conversation with our CRA executive director to see if that's something that she would be comfortable doing. And she stated that she'd be comfortable doing whatever we asked her to do. So I am bringing this discussion to us to see. Obviously, we won't have to expend the amount of money now. We can budget for it. However, we do need consensus and direction before we get there, because we can't wait until it comes before we prepare for it. It is 7 or 8 months out. And to do something of that magnitude, that will cost additional money for additional BSO. If we decide as a board we would want to possibly extend the road across West Dania Beach Boulevard and to create a longer area for our festival, or whatever we're going to call it, if we go that direction. Additional staging, lighting, decoration, marketing, all of those things that I do think that possibly could be helped with either sponsorships or whatever is going to cost an increasingly a sizable amount of money. We haven't decided as a commission or a CRA board the amount of money that we are willing to invest in marketing people to come back and be with us right here. The hotels are going to be all sold out. It's going to be jam-packed. They're going to be here. I think that, we need to make a decision on what we're willing to do here.
In your
Wait. Board Member Brandon Marnie?
Yeah. Are we talking about making a more blown-up, grandeur event with Dania after dark?
Yes.
And would Raquel consider doing it?
This was one of the recommendations that was made in the initial committee meeting. I think you all were given a memo on that. We talked about having an expanded Super Bowl edition of Dania After Dark. Because of the circumstances related to the licensing and not being able to have it be like a tailgate party, if it's something that happens the day before the Super Bowl, I think that is an opportunity for us to just transition what would have been Dania After Dark in the second weekend of February and move it to the first weekend of February. Make it a more amplified event, have a lot more things for children. We can have bounce houses and, be a little bit more interactive. I think that we can expand the event with additional music, have it be something that the community views as, the Super Bowl celebration, and also put some advertising behind drawing people to Dania Beach for this event and, showing them what we have to offer. I think that's something within the realm of what the CRA is already doing and already, pretty much capable of putting together within this time frame. So I want to make sure that it's feasible and we're not doing something beyond our reach. And Dania After Dark Super Bowl theme is what I think the CRA can contribute to the overall Super Bowl activities for the city of Dania Beach.
And you will be in charge of it, the CRA?
Yes, I think we should be in charge of that because we've already established a history of putting on this event. This would just be taking it to a higher level, which I also think we're capable of doing, as we've done with Arts and Seafood. It definitely would not be at the magnitude of Arts and Seafood, but it would just be a little bit more enhanced than the typical Dania After Dark.
Mayor, I want to ask you a question. Maybe you know the answer to it. Why is it they stop us from doing the other parts that Commissioner James brought up? Do you know why?
I have no idea.
I can answer it.
I don't know.
Oh.
What? Like the showing it?
You're talking about the. I'm sorry. I do know that. Yeah, no, I do know the answer to that. I
Okay,
thought you were
good.
talking about the length of the.
All right, then would you answer that
street.
for me? Because I'm just curious. Is it all about money? Is that it?
It's commercial licensing. Has to do with commercial licensing.
No, well, the NFL hold all the rights, so they won't allow. And then there are a lot of competition when you look at bars and restaurants and everyone else that's going to be showing it, and you're possibly taking away their business. And so the NFL holds all the rights to the Super Bowl game. So the president of Super Bowl he's the one that says it's prohibited. A similar idea was proposed by the Super Bowl committee, and the NFL said no.
Huh?
The NFL said no to the Super Bowl committee.
No to that, too.
Correct. So, they said no to the Super Bowl committee. I'm sure they're going to say no to Dania Beach.
Well,
Just saying.
even when individual locations like bars or restaurants put it up, they have to pay an exorbitant amount of money. So that has a lot to do with it.
You mean like when Shenanigans does it?
Yeah, they pay a lot of money for
Well,
that.
guess I'm not a football fan then, because I didn't even know they had to do that.
They're supposed to. So I don't know if they are or not, but they're supposed to.
Thank you,
Who
Mayor.
else have any comments?
Board Member Harris.
Oh.
You guys answered my question, so.
Okay.
I mean, just as a ballpark figure, what would they charge for us to show the Super Bowl game on the?
I mean, I don't know. They're not. It's not even. It's not even an option. They
not
said
an
no
option?
to the Super Bowl committee.
So what if I had a tailgate out there and I put a flat
TV
screen on
out
the
there
back of
would
my
be built.
car?
In a
Would the
public
NFL
area.
come and arrest me?
At a public area
You'd be
or a
violating.
park.
You'd be violating licensing agreements, and you'd end up probably getting sued. My couple of things. One, I know that there is an event space out at Dania Point, and I know I have already had some discussions with Kimco about the event space out there. It will be ready. The entertainment center will be ready in time for this, and I know that that is an area that they have basically said that we would likely be able to use. So, I don't want us to go crazy with spending a ton of money on this, but obviously, I mean, this was originally my idea anyway to even do this, but I don't want us to go completely crazy and spend a ton of money on this. We haven't budgeted for it. And we also need to look into sponsorship opportunities. I personally have a couple of meetings set up already with potential sponsors this week and next, with potential sponsors and potential groups that we can do events with. And so I'd like to see what kind of sponsorship we can get before we start putting numbers on things, because it would be better to see what the opportunities are before we start saying we're going to pay for this. If we know that somebody's going to commit to a certain amount of money, then we won't have to put as much in. I'd also like to see, I mean, maybe this committee that was put together should get together again and have another discussion about it to see what other opportunities have come up since, and if anybody has moved further on it, and then maybe we can have another discussion about this. Maybe have a workshop about it.
Oh my gosh.
I do think that would be a good idea. From the standpoint of planning and logistics, the sooner we know what we're doing, the sooner staff can put it together, put it as part of the budget for fiscal year 1920. It is important that we have direction sooner rather than later. I know that the committee discussion encompassed having several events during the days leading up to the Super Bowl. And so this was just one of the events that was discussed as part of like a bigger Super Bowl celebration. So there was a discussion about having something at our parks related to football, and having NFL or past NFL players be present, and maybe do like a football clinic and have a charity involved. There was also a discussion about having a larger like concert type of thing at Dania Point. So the discussion that I brought to the table during that committee meeting was related to mostly what I think that the CRA could assist with, and what I think is feasible and within the realm of what we contribute now as far as arts and culture and quality of life, sense of place. So of course I do think that there's room for additional discussion. I will recommend that we make some determinations sooner rather than later, just so that we can really start to plan. I think the CRA, out of every entity within the city, and I think we have the most experience with putting on large-scale events, and it does take a lot of work, a lot of planning, a lot of effort, and so I would just prefer that we move on it if we're going to move on it, and just start to plan it so that it's successful.
Board Member Brandon Marty?
When we talk about Dania Point, we're not saying that we're selling out Dania Beach, everything that we have here for our residents, are we? I mean, CRA will still hold a Super Bowl event, won't they? That's what I want to know. I don't want to hear everything out at the point, and nothing in Dania.
No, that's not the intent.
Okay.
Board Member Brandon, the intent was that they actually have a space out there that's going to be an entertainment center, and it's actually going to be ready in time for this.
Okay.
And it's a rather large area that this could be handled. And it's not, I mean, there's no reason why the CRA can't be involved. It's a matter of just having the space for it. So, and this is something, and if they're willing to donate that, or they're willing to work with us and maybe do some sort of sponsorship and pay for part of it and give themselves some benefits by being sponsors, why not take advantage of that and reduce the cost to the city?
I'm going to answer that. We all go to Dania after dark. We know our residents go there. They have a good time there. I don't want to lose something like that if we can have still the CRA have an event right here in Dania Beach. We might have people that don't want to go out to the point. They'd rather stay over here.
Well, I think we need to see what sort of funding we can get from sponsorships first and
Okay.
see what we can afford.
All right, thank you.
Go ahead.
I do want to add, however, that because the Super Bowl is literally 1 month before Arts and Seafood, and Dania Point is the title sponsor of the Arts and Seafood celebration, I would prefer that we not create a reliance on Dania Point as a financial sponsor, unless, of course, they can commit to additional sponsorship above what they do for Arts and Seafood, because that will impact our revenue-generating opportunities for that signature event as well.
I don't think the intent was to take any money away from that. That's not my understanding. Board Member James?
Yeah, so back to this, I just need consensus or direction, not necessarily of the funding tonight. I've clearly heard it. So we don't have to talk about numbers and dollars. Always, I think that even with Arts and Seafood, we give a budget, and then they bring us back whatever it is in revenue, and it goes right back to the same pot. So it's kind of like a loan. I know with Art and Seafood it's a little different because we don't gain more revenue than we expend. But in anything that you're planning, you're going to have a budget before you get the sponsorships, just in case. But it's always known that if you get the sponsorships, you're not actually dishing out that money. Now, what I'm asking is just for consensus to have the Dania After Dark. If the executive director comes up with more creative places, I haven't heard from Kimco, but if they are willing to do whatever is being said, I would rather have that in a signed agreement now than to put all our eggs in a basket there, because we still have to plan on road closures and everything here. My only question to you all for this item in discussion is if we want to go ahead and have this Super Bowl Saturday night pep rally, Dania After Dark. Everything else, I'm sure, I'm going to ask our CRA director if she can come back with cost estimates or whatever it will be to have it here until we find a different option. But we have to start planning on it now. If a different location comes up and a better opportunity comes up, I don't see why we can't go with a better opportunity. But for right now, we have to have what we have right now in front of us, and we have to start making decisions now. We wait for another workshop, that's another month, and bring it back. We're going to be 5 months out, and so some type of direction needs to be made. So I don't know if any other discussion is to be had about it.
I just think that we need to have a little more commitment from others that are potentially going to be involved in this. And I think the committee does need to get back together again. They haven't had a meeting in how long? A couple of months now? And if the committee just simply has a meeting and maybe comes and does a presentation or provides us with the information, then at that point, I think then we could probably get a consensus.
Well, can we see if we have consensus now to do a Super Bowl pep rally Dania After Dark? That's my question. I mean, can we see? I mean, do you want me to go down and ask? Yes, yes. Okay, we have 2 yeses. Okay, thanks.
Next item is decorative intersections. Board Member James.
Yes. I think it's down there. Can someone help me? Keisha, can you help me? Can you help me put this thing on? Here's to the left. On the other side. Top. Okay, you can stop. That's fine. So this is about another idea about decorative crosswalks and intersections, and an idea that I think will greatly enhance our downtown and redevelopment that we're doing. And I just wanted to point out the reference of the CRA plan, that it encourages public art on page 83. I don't have to read it to you all, but it is telling you where it's encouraging these types of project in our downtown area. These are some ideas that are going on in cities, other cities, like city of Fort Lauderdale. I've never even seen this. I must not travel down to Fort Lauderdale a lot. And this is another one in Fort Lauderdale. Tampa Bay also has, like, these are, what did you call them? IG picture worthy or whatever you want to call them, but these make a statement. These are brand statements. Downtown California, some of the ones that I've also had ideas were just for the crosswalks as well. And Austin, Texas. Very simple, different ideas for different people. Now the cost estimate when staff looked at Los Olas, it ranged anywhere from $50,000 to $80,000 to do a project of this magnitude. I think two of them were at, like, one was at 50, one was at 51. One of the higher ones, obviously depending on the size of the crosswalks and the intersections, were more pricey. And so my intersection recommendations would be the ones that are on US 1 and are going from Sterling all the way down to Griffin. So that would be these four, but understanding that it might need to be phased in depending if we can get funding for these things or if we're going to budget for these things. My recommendation would be to start with these two, which is Sterling Road and Dania Beach Boulevard and US 1. So I wanted to know your thoughts on this. That's it. That's all I got for you. And I did a PowerPoint especially for our vice chair. She loves PowerPoints.
Board Member Harris?
I mean, historically speaking, Raquel, you weren't here. The city manager wasn't here. I'm not even sure if Mayor James or Tamara James was here. But Kat Rocco made a program and a presentation for this probably back in 2008 or 2009 when she was on the Creative Arts Council. And we were for it then, so only it didn't get funded. So that plan is probably could be resurrected in conjunction with these, and we could have some really nice crosswalks. So yes, let's take a look at it.
Just a question. I'm trying to understand how this impacts our rebranding efforts as well, because I thought we were doing something similar to this with the rebranding. Board Member James?
I don't understand your question.
Well, we're trying to do rebranding, yes, and we're doing signs, and I know we've talked about putting some banners or other things around as well. How is this related to that, or is this something totally separate?
Yes and no, and I can explain it to you. When we funded for the rebranding efforts, that was just for the initial parts of the rebranding. Now, if we're going to add these types of ideas to the rebranding, you have to expand your budget. You can't spend everything just with a certain pot of money and keep adding to that. Now, of course, this will absolutely match and go with whatever our brand is. We're not going to put something on the crosswalks that it's not going to match our logo or our brand or where we're going. But that part is to be determined.
So, Executive Director, is that something that we could incorporate into the rebranding budget now and incorporate it into the process of rebranding that we've already got in place?
If the desire is to tie this into rebranding, we would need additional funds to be allocated for this aspect of the rebranding initiative if it is added. I do want to clarify a portion of the cost estimate. When we looked into it, the largest part of the expense was to make the crosswalks ADA compliant, which is a requirement by FDOT. So if you're going to do anything artistic at the intersection or the crosswalk, there are new standards for ADA compliance, and most of the estimates, half of it was for the ADA compliant part of it, and the other half was more so for the art and the maintenance of traffic and professional services.
If we didn't do this, would the ADA compliance issue come into play right now?
I have an answer for you.
No, it's not something that we would have to update at this time if we didn't do the decorative intersection, no. But once you determine that that's what you want to do, then you're going to have to make the upgrades to the crosswalks. So there would be a public safety component as well as potentially a rebranding aspect.
Can I add to that? Because I have a question. I have an answer for you. with that.
Board Member James?
Thank you. I spoke to a few people as well, especially when I learned about the ADA compliant requirements. And because this is a FDOT road, there is an opportunity to for us not to be responsible for that portion of it. Obviously, there are some conversations that would need to be had because I asked those same questions. Well, can't, I don't know if it's FDOT or the county or whoever do those things if we are not ADA compliant. Now, I did find out that we are ADA compliant on all of our roads except for Old Griffin. I think that's what I was told. Old Griffin is the only one that have 2 crosswalks that don't have, I don't know the correct verbiage for it, but the little bumps or whatever it is, so people that are blind could feel that they are coming off the street and into a sidewalk. So I do think we are ADA compliant. That is a question that we could find out from our engineer and have additional conversations with him. But from my understanding, the only parts that are not ADA compliant are the ones on Old Griffin, and those aren't the ones that I'm even suggesting that we start with.
I'm just concerned because all I've been hearing throughout this entire meeting today is spending money and spending money and spending money and asking for increases in the amount of money put aside for budgets. And it is, again, like I said at our workshop, we keep spending all this money on things that we want, and when it comes time for things that we need, there isn't going to be anything left. And I'm just, is this something that could wait until after the rebranding initiative is completed? So that we
asking me?
Yeah, I mean, simply wait until we.
Anything could wait. Do I want it to wait? No. We manage money for a living, us 5 up here. We manage millions of dollars for a living. That's what we do. We create policies. We decide where to budget it. It could be budgeted into our next budget. It doesn't have to come out of a budget today, tomorrow, or even next month or mid-year. We can budget it for the right time. But something like this, you have to, I'm asking for a consensus because you have to lay the groundwork before we even get to spending a single dollar. And so it's not going to be, I'm not asking for us to wait. I'm asking consensus after everyone speaks in order to move forward into looking into price points and everything else and to move forward with this. I think this will be a great enhancement to our downtown. This is one of the reasons, the many reasons that our CRA was created. You saw the CRA reference in the CRA plan that was adopted. I think that we're simply doing the job of the plan that we agreed on. So those are my comments.
Executive Director, how much would it cost per intersection? Do we know?
So based on the estimates and what we've looked at in Fort Lauderdale, if you're looking at a decorative intersection where the whole interior is painted as opposed to the crosswalks, the estimates that they have are based on not only the art component, but ADA. We would have to determine if the intersections that we're looking at are already up to the standard that FDOT has in place if you're going to do this sort of project. So we would have to get a more detailed estimate. In addition, we could take a look at our existing budget and see if there's some areas that we can do some reductions in order to make some room in the budget for other things. For example, our commercial property facade grant, we haven't been getting as many applicants lately, and we have increased our advertising efforts. So that may be a place where we can shift around some funds and make accommodations for other things, not necessarily this alone or this at all, but we're definitely mindful of the budget, and anything that is newly requested, we'll have to take a look at some of the existing things that we have budgeted for to make room if it's the desire of the board.
So you don't know how much? I mean, I'm just trying to understand if there's even a range that we know.
Because this is a discussion item brought by Board Member James, she asked that we look around at other places that are doing it, and the closest example that we found was in Fort Lauderdale. So based on what they've spent to do their intersections, I mean, that's the number that I have at this time. If it's the direction of the board to explore this further, we will get a more detailed cost estimate and bring an item back for consideration.
Can you share what that number is that you got from Fort Lauderdale?
Oh, it was what was presented in the PowerPoint.
Okay.
It was $50,000,
Okay.
Yes.
Just wanted clarification. Thank you. Vice Chair.
Okay.
Wait, I was first.
No, you weren't.
She got parliamentarian.
I'm positive. I just turned her light off and it went off.
Ms. Ratchet, go ahead.
Wait, would you like me to give it to you if you need to go first?
No, I have a good suggestion.
Okay. Well, I'll speak briefly. So I remember when you and I were on the CAC, and I remember this even coming up. So this, when we talk about prioritization, we have historically not prioritized public art. This was just not something that the commission prioritized. And maybe at that time it was appropriate for where we were financially, where we were coming out of the economic downturn, and where we were with development. This is certainly a different day in Dania Beach. And I think that the board and the commission as a whole has rather swiftly turned towards seeing the value that public art adds to a society. And with that, I would say that this is something that has tremendous value and is of great importance. In respect to what the chair was saying, perhaps it would make some sense to address her various concerns by phasing in through crosswalks versus the intersections, which I believe is going to be more cost effective. And that way we could sort of baby step into it, starting with some different crosswalks, see how much that would cost us, and while it's exceptionally beautiful, then moving on to those bigger intersection areas, by seeing if not only this has tremendous value to those of us here on the board, but that the residents agree as well that this is something that is adding something to their day-to-day life and to the city as a whole. So that would be my suggestion.
Board Member Harris.
Yes to that. I know we've talked about it before, and I want to say that there are some funding mechanisms available from the Broward MPO because they're doing a lot of creative things, as Director LaFerriere can say, with colored, painted bike lanes and striping. So we may be able to incorporate an intersection with the bike lanes and get everything painted and paid for by the Broward MPO. So there's another funding mechanism right there. And if we could revisit this issue in about a month, I'll have time to get with the people on the MPO to see what funding mechanisms are available. Also through the one penny sales tax initiative, which we should have funds for in about 1 year, that we can take a look at this and see what we can do with the help of the Broward MPO.
Board Member James.
I almost lost my train of thought. Yes, so The consensus that I am seeking is not about the funding. The consensus that I am speaking is to start the legwork. Always have opportunity to get sponsors or funding or grants, but we have to lay the groundwork now. So that is the consensus that I'm seeking.
I'm fine with looking into it. I just don't, we need to see how much it's going to cost overall. Board Member Brandon Marty?
Yeah, Mayor, their streets are like 3 and 4 lanes. Ours are only 2. When we're comparing it to Fort Lauderdale, that makes me laugh because we're not even the size of those streets with 2 of them put together, the lanes. So I think the cost might be better to look into, like exactly like you say. But I love the idea of this, especially if the one that you're talking about starting as a pilot program, I'd like to call that, which would be Dania Beach Boulevard. And I'll tell you why. You all ran for office, otherwise you wouldn't be sitting in these seats. The biggest complaint that the residents of this city has was that the downtown area was disgusting looking. They wanted any of us and all of us to do something about improving there. Why is it not nice looking? Well, it's not nice looking because the people that have those stores on that street are absentee owners that do all of their selling of antiques by way of a computer. Because if that was a lie, you would see so many people walking up and down that sidewalk. Go sit there on one day. The only way you'd get more people there is if you were selling hot dogs in a hot dog stand. Because there ain't nobody walking up and down Dania Beach Boulevard no matter what we're doing. So to me, by doing this beautiful mural, I guess you're going to call it, in the street, will at least give them some compensation that maybe their vote for you to be sitting up here was worth it. Because right now, when you look downtown, we got nice hotels, but you could forget it. The buck stops right there. It does. The buck stops right there. I don't see anybody walking unless they're coming out of the hotel. And now I heard something, I hope it isn't true, Mayor, that some of the hotels have even now stopped their shuttle service. The hotels actually had shuttle service to shuttle you over to like the Fish Grill or down Apollo's or even all over the place. And I'm understanding that they're stopping the shuttles now. So that's something we got to look into also, because I don't want them to do that for the tourists. Because the tourists, by the time they get there, they have no more car. They've left it at Park and Fly, but that's where we are now. I think we should improve that street. Thank you.
Board Member James?
Yes, I just want to be clear with the consensus that I'm seeking so we can move forward. I know we have a number of items left on here. Okay, so I'm seeking the consensus. I'm going to try and take everything into consideration and understand in about a year we might have additional funding to do the insides of them. So I'm seeking consensus to move forward with, if it's just the crosswalks, then the 4 crosswalks, that we start the process into doing that now.
Looking into the actual costs and the
to start the process into doing it. Like I'm seeking consensus on moving forward with a project for the crosswalks at those 4 intersections. That's what I'm seeking.
Board Member Brandon Marty?
Yeah, I have to ask a question. If you put those crosswalks down, does it mean that later on we got the money, we got to paint over them? I don't want to see that. That's money wasted.
Well, you would have to always do maintenance on.
I'm talking
on
about
things.
the circle, like what you showed us. What's beautiful with your rendition.
No. Whatever design that we would go with, it would. I would recommend that it's a complete design that includes the crosswalks in the middle.
I didn't understand
However, start with just the crosswalk part of it. If there might be funding or grant mechanisms that we can include or complete the insides of them, but we can start with the outside. Doesn't mean that when we do another project and fill the insides, we're going to redo the outsides. No.
Okay. I say let's go for it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Next item is Housing Forum Update, Board Member Harris.
You were presented in your packet the agenda for the 29th forum. So because in the interest of time, we don't have time for a lengthy discussion on this, but if you look at it, you want to make any changes, send your changes and your requests to Raquel. so we can tighten up our agenda. We have to have everything finalized and the agenda published by, I think, the 24th, which is the Friday before Memorial Day weekend. So submit your changes. I'm in contact with Raquel, gosh, 2 or 3 times a day over this with our expanding guest list and the invites and everything, and with Josh Gabaton. So we'll have another update for you soon via email, if that's okay. And it should be a successful event at the Hotel Morrison.
Board Member Brandamari?
Yeah, 10:15 on that agenda. It says acknowledgements and introduction of speakers. Don't we all get a chance to do that? Why is there only one person picked? Hello, somebody.
Anybody?
Anybody
Executive
home?
Director? Anybody?
Well,
It says 10:15, acknowledgements and introduction of speakers. Why is it we all don't have a chance to introduce a speaker?
again,
I'd love
this
to
is a draft, and
Good, change it. I want to speak too.
You will have your greetings right above at 10:05.
Oh, I don't care about that. I want to introduce somebody.
Okay. Who you bringing?
Louis,
Okay. All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else?
and he's a dignitary. My
Any-
dignitary.
Nobody else? Okay, I'm going to move on to the next item. Pride Event Option CRA Executive Director Williams.
so a few meetings ago, there was a discussion item brought forward, and there was consensus for CRA staff to come back with some recommendations on how to incorporate Pride events into the city of Dania Beach. And the memo presented has some ideas for how we can accomplish that. And I'm looking for some direction and comment on what has been presented. We can do all, some, none. We can make changes. This is just what I think is feasible for us.
Vice Chair.
Thank you so much for putting this together, Director. I would say we're not going to do none, I hope, because we're not going to pretend an entire part of our community does not exist. But I think that this is a reasonable sort of step up into having an actual city-endorsed Pride event. I'm a huge fan of the Gay Man's Chorus of South Florida, so having the opportunity for them to perform at the tree lighting event, that is incredibly exciting. And I'm looking at we would have a little Dania After Dark, it seems, on October, a little event that would include some LGBTQ extended cocktail hour tied to a charity. I've been in touch with several charities that are all very interested and could easily cover that $1,500, since I know that's always a concern. And it looks like we're kind of leaving open up that third event, which would coincide with Fort Lauderdale's Pride event. Do we have any ideas for what that would be, Director?
So one of the main considerations that I have is the timing of everything. Given that the Super Bowl is, the first of the month.
Right.
The Fort Lauderdale Pride is the third weekend of the same month, and then Arts and Seafood is the following month. I want to ensure that we can look at this as more of a partnership with an entity similar to the way that the CRA sponsors the Vintage Motorcycle Show every year. I'm looking to interface with the organizers of Fort Lauderdale Pride to see if we can have a fully endorsed event in Dania Beach, and perhaps they already would have some ideas in mind for the types of events that have been missing from their existing schedule or lineup. And I'm looking for us to look at this as a partnership. there are a couple different ideas that could be floated around, but I really do think that Fort Lauderdale Pride will have a lot of influence as far as the type of event, because they're not going to put something on their schedule that conflicts with what they have going on in other cities, or that is a duplicate type of event. So we don't want to do anything that's already being done.
Absolutely.
So I would want to sit down with them and really have a deeper conversation about how we incorporate Dania Beach. And again, I want to look at this as a sponsorship, partnership, something that is not too administratively taxing on staff, especially as we're looking at the schedule of events that we have during that period.
Understood. Director, have we reached out to any of the LGBT businesses that we have in city?
No, we have not.
Okay. So that seems like a natural sort of something we'd want to reach out to them, because I know that they are interested and very excited that this is on the table. So I think you're right. I don't think we will have any difficulty finding partnerships, and I think that it sounds prudent to speak with the Fort Lauderdale, the people who are handling that, and see what they have lined up and how our event could fit with that. But it seems like something we need to do sooner than later, as we have a lot on the lineup. Sorry, go ahead.
No. Board Member Brandamari?
Yeah, I got a problem with this. It says the CRA board decided that participation in the June 15 Wilton Manor Stonewall Pride Parade and Street Festival could serve as an initial way to demonstrate that the city of Dania Beach is welcoming to LGBTQA. When are we going to have our own? I mean, we should start planning for the future to have our own and not worry about what other cities are doing. I mean, it's nice to incorporate with other cities, but it's also nice to know we also have our own. That's important to me, not to piggyback off of another town. So please, in the future, let's get this somewhere on an agenda somewhere. Okay? Because that's what I want to be known for. And I'll tell you something else I don't like. I don't like the wording in this thing. I don't know why it's worded queer questioning. That bothers me. I don't like to hear that kind of stuff. And I don't care what it pertains to either, but I don't like it. So strike that out, because I just did.
That's part of the acronym.
Yeah, I know, but I don't need it.
Okay.
I don't need to read something like that. It's annoying to me. I just want it to be called exactly the way it is, LGBTQA. To me, that's perfect. I don't need a hat on somebody's head telling me anything. So I want our own, though. I don't want to piggyback off another town in the future. Please, will we agree with this? This is very important. To me, it is anyway.
Okay, I'm going to move this along because we're running out of time, but just one thing I just want to make sure that you're aware of. Well, first of all, I like the idea of the gay men's chorus. I think that's excellent.
I love it.
My concern about Dania After Dark is October is also, if I'm not mistaken, Hispanic Heritage Month. And I don't want to take away from one group to support another. There might be a way to combine it. I don't know if that's the way we should go. I think it's something that needs more discussion. But it is, we do have a growing Hispanic population, especially in Dania Beach, so I think that's something that we need to focus on as well. And as far as Fort Lauderdale is concerned, I'd like to know more about the other events that they might be able to propose for us. That's all. Does anybody have anything else, or can we go? Okay. Last item is parking garage mural update, Director Williams.
So at a previous CRA board meeting, there was discussion and consensus to move forward with exploring a mural project for the parking garage. And the Creative Arts Council Advisory Board was engaged to spearhead opportunities. A call to artists was put out, and there were 23 submissions. And the Mural Arts Subcommittee of the Creative Arts Council Advisory Board narrowed down the 23 submissions to 9, the top 9. And then the full CAC board narrowed those 9 down to the 4 that are being presented here. So most, if not all, of the artists submitted renderings of what they felt could go on the garage wall, and many of them also provided samples of their previous work. So this first submission is from Jacqueline LaFlame. She was ranked number 1 by the CAC, and she provided 3 images. They're basically layered. If you go to the first one, this is like an option. The second one, you see the pier and beach scene, and then the Dania Beach is added to it. The next submission is from Jesse Thorson, and he submitted quite a few options. This is what he depicts to be on the wall. It's like a underwater scene. Here's an option where you see below the pier, and then this is an option looking out to the pier. The third submission is from Marcos Conde. And there's a lot of aspects to this one. It kind of jumps out a little bit more. Then the last submission was from Ray Lozano, excuse me. And this artist provided a few renderings as well. So based on what the Creative Arts Council Advisory Board has presented, I'm coming to the CRA board to determine if there's any feedback or direction for this project.
I have a question for you. Have any of these artists provided or indicated that they can do something that could potentially be moved at some point? Because we still have the city center project. We don't know what's going to happen with that. And now we've extended the time period for people to submit proposals. And again, my concern, as I've said before, is spending a whole bunch of money on a building that might get torn down. But if they can do something where it's like a wrap or something like that that can be moved to another location, I would be much more comfortable with that.
So the direction that the Creative Arts Council Advisory Board received was not anything related to the artwork being movable. During the discussion at the CRA board meeting, it was identified that if this were to move forward as a project, we're looking at a 2 to 4 year window depending on how the city center project goes, and we acknowledge that it would be a short-term and not long-term mural project. So no, the direction was not to have it be movable. That's not what was told to the CAC.
Right. My concern is one of the artists who I heard a lot of people going ooh and ah about when it came up is $55,000 to $65,000. So a $65,000 project that could potentially be torn down in a couple of years is a little much. So that's all. Board Member James?
Yes, and thank you. I want to say thank you to the Creative Arts Council as well as the CRA for the time that they spent going through all of these applications. Very quickly, I just wanted to state that also in this discussion, when speaking about numbers, we also spoke about getting sponsorships. So this wasn't something that we said was going to be full-on responsibility that will come on us financially, in the greatest opportunities, we wouldn't have to pay for it at all. But again, starting somewhere and having a plan and moving towards something is something that we definitely have to do as a city, and especially if we're trying to get the funding to have it here by 2020.
Board Member Brandon Marty?
Well, if you go to Dania After Dark and you ask the people over there, they would tell you that they would like to see a beautiful light show on the side of the garage, not a painting. That's what the consensus was to me. They would like to see light shows to blend in with the Dania After Dark. So I don't know so much about spending that kind of money for something that might not be there. That's hard to digest.
Vice Chair?
Were these the only submissions, or were these just the top? Do we have, oh, well, the chair answered. There was more?
Yes, there were 23 submissions. The top 4 were presented tonight.
Do we have the option to see the other ones?
Absolutely, we can provide you with all of the submissions, and we can break it down as well to the top 9 that was selected before the top 4. We can provide you with as much information as you need.
Okay, I'd like to see a little bit more. Maybe there'll be something that's a little bit more in our budgetary concerns. Maybe we can also eventually reach out and see if, as the mayor said, there is an option for it to come in wrap form. I know very little about that, so I don't know if it is. But if it is, that might be something. So those are 2 ways that we could look at bringing costs down. So if you could bring those to us, I think we would like to see that.
And if I could just add, it's not just about cost. It's also, I hate to see somebody spend all this time and create something beautiful like this and then tear it down in a couple of years. I mean, it just seems like a waste and a loss to all of us in the long run. Anyway, Board Member James.
Through the chair to the CRA director, is the garage being torn down?
No, we do not anticipate tearing down the
I
garage.
just wanted
as
to
part
put
of
that
the
on
city center
record. The
project.
garage isn't going anywhere with the new city center or without one. The garage is still going to be there. Now, how they incorporate the rest of the project with it is another story. But if anything, I think this commission has even agreed to the possibilities of adding more stories to the garage versus tearing the garage down. So I just wanted to be very clear to anyone who's out there listening that there was never an intention to tear the garage down.
Well, my understanding was we don't know yet because we haven't gotten the proposals yet for the city center project, and depending upon what, that's news to me because that's not what was said previously, that there was always the potential of that taking place. And that's what's taken place in all the charrettes that I've been to anyway.
I'm not sure when or how that was communicated. We have been promoting the garage as part of the foundation of the city center project and what we want to leverage to increase the density here at the site. I am not sure if there will be development to the east of the garage in that grassy area. That could be, potentially what will cover the western wall of the garage. But we had not had any previous discussions on the staff level or otherwise to potentially demolish the garage.
Okay. Board member comments? Board member Brandon-Marty? Nothing. Board member Harris? Board member James? Vice Mayor?
Chair, respectfully, could we have an extra 5 minutes before we started the next meeting?
I was going to suggest that at the end. How about we reconvene can we reconvene at, say, 7:10? Can we do that legally? Okay. Okay, we are going to reconvene at 7:10. And with that, we're adjourned.